Okay, we're going to. Okay, this is the last Rashi of Parshas Vayalhel. It's a Sikh in Chilik Tazayin. There's a third Sikh of Parshas Vayalhel, starting on page 443. And it's the last Rashi in the Parsha. It's not the last pasuk, but it's the last Rashi in the Parsha. There, at the end of the Parsha Vayalhel, it talks about the chotzer of the Mishkan. So repeat what it says in Parshas Truma. So I'll just give a little akdome, because otherwise it's going to be hard to understand. Let me just describe how it was. The Mishkan was 20 amas long and 10 amas wide. And the Mishkan was made up of the Elmeir and the Kedesh HaKadoshim. Around it, you had the chotzer, the yard. The yard, and around the yard, you had what we call, in Chumash, it calls it kloyim. It's certain material, certain fabric. They call it canvas. I don't know, that surrounded, that was like the wall, but it was a canvas that surrounded the chotzer, that surrounded the yard, the courtyard. Now, these kloyim were the length of the chotzer. The length of the chotzer was 100 amma by 50 amma, which means they made the cloth, the kloyim, on one side, it was 100 ammas long. And how wide were the kloyim? 5 ammas. It was 5 ammas by 100 ammas. And that they put down on one side, and the other side with the same thing again. It was kloyim 100 ammas long, and it was 5 ammas wide, because when they made it, it was 5 ammas wide and long 100, and they put it down. And in the back was 50 ammas. So there they had the kloyim of 50 ammas and 5 ammas high. I'm saying it now the way Rashi learns. We will see in the Sikha that there are shittas that will learn that the kloyim were 15 ammas high. We'll get to it. I'm just mentioning it. I don't want to confuse, but I'm just getting to it because we should expect it later. But at this point, we're learning that the kloyim were 5 ammas high, and the pasuk refers to it. It was high, the width of 5 ammas. What does that mean? The height of the width? Because when the canvas was made, when the kloyim were made, the length was 100 and the width of it was 5. Then when you took it and you put it down, that long canvas, you put it down, so the width of the canvas became the height. So that was 5 ammas high. This was the sides, 100 and 100, and the back was 50. In the front, there were also this kloyim, but in the middle of the kloyim, there was an entrance, there was a shar, there was a place to enter into the chotzer. And the way the pasuk says, the way Rashi again explains in Parshat Truma, the pasuk says there were kloyim of 15 amos, then there were kloyim on the other side 15 amos. In other words, the whole front, as we said, the width was 50. So the back was one line of kloyim, 50 amos. In the front, it was 15 amos of kloyim, the same size as the other kloyim, which was 5 amos. On the other side, towards the other end, was another 15 amos of kloyim. Together, it's 30. So there was a gap in the middle of 20, of 30. I mean, this was 30 and 20 because it was altogether 50. So there you had a mosach, a pareiches, which is a curtain that you could go through. And this pasuk is talking about that curtain. That curtain we will call mosach. So throughout the year, the walls, the fabric that surrounded the chotzer will call the kloyim, and this we're going to call the mosach, which is the curtain where you were able to go. And the curtain, the way it comes out, the way we're going to learn in the pasuk is, it was 20 amma wide. That was the entrance. The height was 5 ammas, the same height as the kloyim. So the pasuk says, and I'll read the pasuk actually in the pasuk. That's a pasuk Yud Ches at the end of the parsha. Mosach shar hechotzer, and this mosach, this curtain by the gate of entering the chotzer. So the pasuk first says what it was made from. It was ma'aserekim, chelas fargom, and then it says how long was it? Ve'esim amma eirech. It was 20 amma long because, as we said, 15 on one side with the kloyim, 50 on the other side with the kloyim, and that's 30, and there's altogether that side was 50. So there were 20 amas length of this mosach. The kaimo, how high was the mosach? So the pasuk says, bereichav chomesh amas. The height of the mosach was the width of 5 amas. What does it mean? The height was the width. Like I said before, since when they made that curtain, before they put it up, it was 20 by 5. So when they put it up, now it's 20 standing, 20 long. And what's the height? The height is 5. And the pasuk continues after it says it was the height of 5 amas. L'umas kalei achotzer. It was 5 amas l'umas, and we'll see in a moment what that means. L'umas kalei achotzer. So let's learn the sikha inside. from Posik to Mosach Shara Chotzer Gemet. When this Posik, where it says the Mosach, the curtain of the gate of the Chotzer, was Esrim Amma Eirech, was 20 Amma long. The height of it was 5 amas, and he calls it the width because that was the width, which was when you stand it up, it's the height. So the height was 5 amas. Leumas kala yachotzer. His Rashi meitig divert. Rashi copies, brings in the Dibur HaMaschal the words from the Posik, the words leumas kala yachotzer. And Rashi is on his Mefarish. Rashi explains what does that mean. Kemidas kala yachotzer, like the measurements of the kloim, which makes a lot of sense. That the 5 amas height of this curtain was the same height as the kloim, since the kloim all around the chotzer, the kloim were 5 amas high. This was the same thing. It was 20 amas because it was in between the 2 sides of the kloim. And what was the height? 5, like the measurement of the kloim themselves. That's what Rashi teaches in the word leumas kalei chotzer. Seine Meforshim masbir, so Meforshim explain what's Rashi trying to tell us here. Rashi kumba dobavor, and Rashi tries to explain the teich from word leumas is nicht wie es wird geteich bichlal keneged. That the word leumas here is not as it's normally explained. Normally, it's interpreted as keneged, across, against, or across. That's teich leumas. So Rashi wants to tell us here it doesn't mean across. For him, you can't say here that the Mosach was 5 amas across the kloim. The gate that we're talking about here was not across the kloim, nor by Zayazait. It was on the side of the kloim. You had kloim on one side, you had kloim on the other side, and on the side of the kloim, you had this Mosach. So what does it mean? It's across. It's leumas, which means across the kloim. So therefore, Rashi says that here it doesn't mean across. Nor the word leumas domain kemidas. It means the measurement. That's the pasuk. So it's telling you that it was 5 amas, like the measurements of the kloim themselves. Now, we understand the Rebbe asks, you have to understand. All Rashi is trying to explain what the word leumas means. So why does he quote from the pasuk also the next words kali achotzer? All Rashi in his pshat he also repeats it. He says kemidas kali achotzer. Why mention the word kali achotzer? Or gedarv zogen bekitzer. It should have said simple. Very short. You should have quoted the word leumas and explained means kemidas. And as we know, the Rebbe always says that Rashi, every word is meduyik, that every word of the Dibur HaMaschal, of the part that he brings from the Posik, is exact. But here he doesn't add anything in the word kali achotzer. All he adds is in the taich of kemidas. So he should have said kemida, the mice of leumas. He should have said leumas means kemidas. Also does not understand. There are other places in Chumash where it says the same word lumas, and there also you can't touch it the way it's normally touched, means across, keneged, against, or across. One is the posik lumas machbarte in Pasha Tetzaveh. In Pasha Tetzaveh, as you see in the order, it says Chavches Chavzayin. So in the posik Chavzayin over there in Kapitel Chavches, it talks about the Ephod and the Cheshen. Anyway, so the Pasuk says you shall make 2 tabei zov, which means 2 golden rings. And where should you make it? The Pasuk says, Leumas machbarte. So Rashi says, I'll read the Rashi before you. Leumas machbarte means there was the chibur, the connection between the Cheshen and the Ephod. So over there, Leumas machbarte means above the place where they connect. Machbarte means the chibur, the connection. So the top, on top of where they connect the Ephod with the Cheshen, that's where you make the tabois. So that's one place. Also in Leumas HaOtze in Parsha Vayikra. In Parsha Vayikra it also says when they gave the karbonos, and there it says in the pasuk you should be makrab the korban for al yetmima Leumas HaOtze Yisareno. Should take it off the Uma of the Otze. Otze means the kidneys. So Rashi says, what does it mean? In both places, Rashi says Leumas Machbarte means on top of the connection. And on top where the Ephod and Cheshen connect, that's where you'd make the tabois. In Parsha Vayikra, he says something that's on top. The Umas HaOtze means on top of the Otze. The Otze is the kloyes, the kidneys, and it's on top of the kloyes. Dort is Rashi Mefarish, Somuch L'maylo. In one place he says it means close, but on top. And another place he says it's L'maylo. So it comes out that the word L'umas could be touched L'maylo, above. See, Rashi in 2 places, touches L'umas means above. So Rasha could have explained, should have explained it here the same way. That the word umas here, where it says that the Mosach, should it says be Reichav Chomesh Ames, came of Reichav Chomesh Ames, 5 Ames, Lo Umas Kala Yachotzer, Yikotaich, it means above the Kala Chotzer. Well, 9 Taichen, and you should say the Pshat in the Posik differently. But came of Reichav Chomesh Ames, Umas Kala Yachotzer meant when it says it should be high 5 Ames. Lo Umas Kala Yachotzer mean at the Heich from the Mosach Shara Chotzer is when Chomesh Ames Hecher Lamaila from the Kala Yachotzer. Let's look back at the Posik at the beginning of the Sikha. The Posik says that this Mosach was 5 amas high, and we could touch Lumas Kali Achotzer means 5 amas higher than the Kali Achotzer. Now, for sure, Lumas here doesn't mean against, but it could mean the way Rasha says over there. Favos touch the Lumas Kemidas. Why does Rasha touch the word Lumas here? Kemidas was ein lechover in Chumash. In no other pasuk in Chumash, Tanakh maybe we find, but in Chumash, nowhere else is the word Lumas mean like it says in, according to the measurement. But the word Lumas, the meaning on top, we find other places. So Rasha should have said it also. That what the Pasuk is saying, that the height of the Mosach was 5 ames higher than the Kali Achotzer, which means it was 10 ames. So according to that, we understand what is the Pshat. It makes a lot of sense. The Kloim all around were 5 ames high. And when it came to the entrance by the Shar, by the gate in the front, where you had the 20 ames wide of this curtain, that was 10 ames high. It was 5 ames higher than the Kloim. Nochmer, the Rebbe says, the question is stronger. Their Pirish is the Chura Mer Miskabel in Hemshech HaKosov. This Pshat will fit more to the Hemshech of this Posuk. With the Pirish Kemidas, more than if you'll say the way Rasha says that the meaning of the word Lumas means Kemidas. Why? Leighton Pirish, Somuch L'mayla, according to the Pirish, that Lumas would mean close but above, is verstandig, was as muss nicht stehen die Werte Lumas Kala Echotzer. We understand why the Torah has to write the words Lumas Kala Echotzer. Because according to that chat, what would the Pasuk be saying? It should be high, Chomesh Ames, above the Kala Echotzer. So the Pasuk has to tell you what he means. Say, these words come to tell you, Viflus is given the Heich from the Mosach Shara Chotzer. How high was this Mosach by the Shar of the Chotzer? It was Chomesh Ames Hecher for the Kloim. It was 5 Ames higher than the Kloim. So the words Lumas Kali Echotzer has to say, it's Chomesh Ames Lumas higher than the Kali Echotzer. But later Pirish Kemidas, but according to the Pshat, the Rasha says it means like the measurement of the Kloim. That telling you that this Mosach of this curtain had the same amount, same height as the Kloim. So the words Lumas Kala Chotzer are completely extra. It says clearly in the words of the Pasuk, it says the height is 5 ames. And according to the Pshat of Rasha says, it means that it was only high 5 ames. So what does the Pasuk get that there's the same measurement as the Kala Chotzer? What difference does it make? See, according to the other Pshat, it has to tell you Lumas Kala Chotzer because it's telling you it's not like the Kloim. It's 5 ames higher than the Kala Chotzer. The words Kala Chotzer have to say. But if you're saying it means it was 5 ames and it tells you like the measurement of the Kala Chotzer, so why does it have to tell you? It says 5 ames. The Kala Chotzer was 5 ames, so it already says 5 ames high. Why does it have to add the words? So this is another point here why it would have been better if Rasha would have touched L'umas Kala Chotzer means 5 ames higher than the Kala Chotzer. The kasha wird noch starker, like a Friedigen Pirish Rasha. The kasha is even stronger, according to something that Rasha said before. This gets a little bit more involved. It's an argument in Rabbi and Rabbi. We have to keep track of what the Rebbe says here. There's an argument in Rabbi and Rabbi wegen der Heich from the Mizbeach. How high the Mizbeach was. We're talking about the big Mizbeach that's standing in the Azor in the Chotzer. Rabbi Yehuda sagt, dass versteht, Shalosh Ames Gemosse is the word Kiksova. The Buddha says, the Torah says it was 3 ames high. So Rabbi Yehuda says exactly what it means. 3 ames, the Mizbeach was 3 ames high. When Rabbi Yossi learned to do Gzeira Shover, Rebuah, from Mizbeach Apnimi, Rabbi Yossi has a limud, has a Gzeira Shover, the way we learn out from the Mizbeach Apnimi, from the smaller Mizbeach. That's not what it meant. Okay, just like by the Mizbeach Apnimi, the height was double its length. So here also by the big Mizbeach, we learn from the limud, it was double the length. which means as the Heich for the Mizbeach is given 10 amas. The Mizbeach was 10 amas. So again, so we have Rabbi Yehuda says it was 3 amas, and Rabbi Yossi says it was 10 amas. Bring the Gemara. Gemara continues. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda said to him, he wants to tell him, how could you say it was only 3 amas? Is it possible that the Mizbeach is 10 amas high, and the Kohen that was standing on the Mizbeach and doing Davide, if it was 10 amas, and the Kloyim, so to speak, were 5 amas, so when you stood outside the Mishkan and you looked up, you could see the Mizbeach high up, 5 amas higher than the Kloyim, higher than the covering, the surrounding of the Chotzer, and you could see the Kohen doing Davide. But maybe the Mizbeach is 10 amas high, if the Mizbeach is 10 amas high, it's the Hecher from the Kali HaChotzer, so it's higher than the Kloyim of the Chotzer. But Zeir Hecher, even Chomesh amas, they were only 5 amas high. But Rabbi Yossi answered him, as halt, as the Heich from the Kloyim is given 10 amas. He also thought it wasn't 5, the Kloyim was not 5 amas. Kloyim were 15 amas. Like I said in the beginning of the Shita, there is the Shita that was 15 amas. And that he takes from the different psukim. The psukim that say that there were 15 amas. So we said before, what it means is that on the front, there were 15 amas of Kloyim, and then on the other side, 15 amas of Kloyim, and in the middle was the Shar, and that's where the curtain was of 20 amas. But he learns that when it says 15 amas, it goes on the height of the Kloyim. Whatever it is, however he learns that, but he learns that when it says 15 amas, it means higher. So Rabbi Yossi holds that the Kloyim were 15 amas high. And the Mele blacked out that people couldn't see because the Mizbeach was 10 amas, and the Kloyim were 15 amas, he couldn't see. Now, behemshech to this singing that it was 10 amas, the Rebbe brings another point which will connect. The Gemara in Erev Zok, another Gemara in Erev says in the beginning of Erev, at the Shir from Pesach, there it talks about what's called an opening, what's called an entrance, the Gabidim of Erev. Anyway, but there it says the Shir, what is the measurement of the halacha of a Pesach, of a door, of an opening? It's Esrim Amma. The Heich, that it's 20 amma high and 10 amas wide. That's what it says. That's what the Pesach is. Frag the Gemara, and the Gemara learns it out from certain places. Frag the Gemara asks, Leil for me Pesach Shara Chotzer, let's learn it out from the opening in the Chotzer, as we're learning now the opening that was to enter the Chotzer. And what would we say? Ma lahal chomesh bereicha v'esrim, just like over there. How big was that opening? Which is the curtain that opened it up. It was 5 by 20. It was 5 amas high, as we're saying the whole time. That curtain was the same height as the Kloyim. They were 5, and how wide was it? 20. Afkan chomesh bereicha v'esrim. So maybe from there, let's learn out in every opening. When is it called an opening? If it's 5 by 20. That's the Gemara's kasha. When the Gemara answers in Zweiten Teres, the Gemara answers in the second Teres, few truths in. In the second Teres, Legiris is HaTesis, according to Tesis, the Gemara answers that according to this Gemara, Kloyim Tesva Vama. That the Kloyim were not 5, like we said. The Kloyim were 15. When it says that the height was 5, which means the width of the Kloyim of this thing was 5, and when you stood it up, it was high 5. That's from on top of the Kloyim. Meaning, Tesis is Masben. Tesis explains what it means. The Kushas HaGemara is if them, the Gemara's kasha was on the Shir Chof Hamath and Gibeah Pesach. We said before, what's the height of a Pesach or an opening? 20 amma. So the Gemara asks, why is it 20 amma? Is that from Pesach HaChotzer? The Shir from Gibeah Pesach is no Chomesh Amas. Let's look at the Chotzer. And the opening in the Chotzer there, with the curtain, was only 5 ammas high. So the Gemara's kasha is, why did you say that it's 20 amma high? The Chura learn out from here that it's 5. That's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara tutu in the answer. And what's the answer of the Gemara? As Pesach HaChotzer, he says, no. The Pesach HaChotzer was stuck at 20 ammas. Now, where do we get that from? Very poshut. Because in those was state the Kema Bereichem Chomesh Ammas, when the Pasuk says that the curtain of the Chotzer was 20 amma wide and 5 ammas high, meant misvas kloyim alamayla. It means it was 5 amma from the end of the kloyim. In other words, it was 5 ammas higher than the kloyim. 5 ammas hecher from the kloyim, but Ladas Rabbi Yossi says he given test of ammas canal. Rabbi Yossi holds it was 15 ammas the kloyim, and the curtain in front was higher. It was 15 plus 5. That's what the pasuk means. And the Melee answers, the Gemara asked the kasha, where do we get, why do we say a Pesach is 20 amma high? Here we see it was only 5 ammas high. So he says, no. the kloim were 15, and the pasuk says this was 5 amas on top of the kloim's height. So it's 20, and the Chama, so it fits. Come to Chois as Ladas Rabbi Yasi, like Pirish of Teisva. According to what Teisva says, this Pshat. Pshat in Rabbi Yasi is that Taich from the Umas Kala Chotzer. How does he touch these words in pasuk where it says it should be 5 amas high? Lo Umas Kala Chotzer. Doesn't touch Lumas means like the measurement of the Kala Chotzer. He touches Hecher from the Kala Chotzer. That's how he touches in the pasuk. Where do we get that this curtain was 20 amas high, which means the Pesach was 20 amas high? Because the pasuk says it was 5 amas, and obviously the pasuk continues Lu'umas HaChotzer, and Lu'umas HaChotzer means, according to this chart, 5 on top of the kloyim. The kloyim were 15 according to his opinion. This is 20. Ibal Mizan. So this is a kasha, this is a raya from the Gemara. Now what does it got to do with Rashi? This is like the Rebbe always says, Gemara has its own gedorim and its own klolim and things like that. But in this case, it's not so. The Baal Mezen as frier in Parashat Truma bringt Rashi Rabbi the days for the Guna Rabbi Yasi. Rashi benegay the height of the Mizbeach, which is all based on it started off with how the height of Mizbeach was. Were you able to see from the floor with the kohen on the Mizbeach, depending how high the kloyim were? So Rashi brings both opinions. It doesn't say anything about the kloyim. It just brings 2 opinions. One opinion that the Mizbeach was 3 amas high, and one opinion is that the Mizbeach was 10 amas high. Now, we said before that according to opinion that it was 10 amas high, the kloyim were 15 amas, and the front was 20 amas. So according to that, but the Rashi in his Pirush, and these words, Lumas Kala Chotzer, Gedarf bring in them tight, in Lumas Kala Chotzer, Samuch L'mayla. He should have brought the pshat that it means the Maila from the Kala Chotzer. Not only because the Rebbe says it fits in the pasuk, because otherwise, if it means it was only 5, like the kloyim, why does it have to tell you like the kloyim? It says 5. And 5 means it was 5. So that itself is a raya. That's why Rashi should have rather said lumas means higher, because then we need the words kalei achotza. But besides that, Narbal says masim to das Rabbi Yasi, but Rashi brings it up. Rashi himself brings Rabbi Yasi, and Rabbi Yasi holds that it was 10 amas high. And the Gemara explains that according to Rabbi Yasi, that it was 10 amas high, the kloyim were 15, and this was 5 amas higher. But the word lumas hachotzer, according to that opinion, means higher than the kloyim. So why doesn't Rashi say it? It would fit to that opinion that Rashi says before. In Emerson, the Rebbe says those are concussion. It's not a kasha. But the ganze shakel of Atari hot cannot like them vi Rashi lent al pipshuta shemikra. This whole discussion that we had does not fit according to Rashi. Yeah, we were all on the basis that since the Gemara says that according to Rabbi Yasi that it was 15 amma, you can't learn it was 5 amma the coin because you could see. So according to Rabbi Yasi that the Mizbeach was 10 ammas high. So you had to say that the kloyim were 15, and this was even more. So the Rebbe asked, so that Rashi could learn like that. So now that has nothing to do with, even though the Gemara says it, not with Rashi. Because in Posek, we say Pashat Truma, the end of Pashat Truma, it says, Erech HaChotzer, the length of the Chotzer is whatever it is. The Kemo, it says Chomesh Amas. It says the height was 5 amas. And Rashi explains clearly, Rashi Befarish, for Kemo, Chomesh Amas, what does it mean it was high 5 amas? Geva, Mechitzas HaChotzer. The height of the kloyim of the mechitza of the chotzer was 5 amas. And Rashi explains the kloyim were 5 amas high, which really means they were 5 amas wide. It means that when they were laying on the floor, let's say they were long 100 and wide 5. So when you set them up, it was 5. So Rashi says clearly that it was 5. So Rashi doesn't give any place that it was 15. Das heißt, der Gambam Shir from the Mizbeach bringt Rashi every day from Rabbi Yasi. Even though when he talks about the Mizbeach and he says how high the Mizbeach was, he brings Rabbi Yasi's opinion that it was Gobri Pishnaim Kyorke, it was double the length, which means it was 10. Von deswegen, but Negeya gave him Chitz Chotzer, still when it comes to the size of how the Chotzer was, which means how high the Kloyim were, so the Beif Stomach, there he says very simple, doesn't bring 2 opinions. As this is Chomesh Amas. So according to Rashi, according to everybody, it was Chomesh Amas. Not according to the Gemara, but according to with their opinion, whether you learn that the Mizbeach was 10 amas or 3 amas, makes no difference. Rashi says that it was 5 amas the kloyim. The tanya that he says, if the Mizbeach was 10 amas high, people could see. So the Rebbe says, Muzmazog, as al piderach apshat, according to Pshat, you have to say, is I feel a Leib and Pirish as the Heichum Mizbeach is then Yudamas, even if you hold like that opinion, that the Mizbeach was 10 amas, is they gave him a chitzas achotzer given or chomesh amas. Still doesn't matter. The kloyim, which is the height of the chotzer, was still 5 amas. The Gemara says different. So he says that Pam is moving the pash. The reason is understood. That means that even though the Gemara says that if you hold that the Mizbeach was 10 amas, the kloyim couldn't be 5. So the Rashi has no problem with that. See, we talk in hechrich and derech pshat. In pshat, again, only in pshat. There's nothing that forces us to say in pshat, that you're not allowed to see the Aveda, the Kohen doing the Aveda in the Mizbeach. The whole raya was, because if it was 10 and the Kohen were 5, you could see. So big deal. So in Gemara, in Halacha, maybe there's reasons, but in Pshat, there's no reason. When the Riber Taichme became a Chomesh Ames, Kipshute. Therefore, you could say that the 5 Ames by the Kohen was Mamish Kipshute. Nitvi al Piderech Limud HaGemara, but that's Rabbi Yossi. Not like the Gemara is according to Rabbi Yossi, that the Mizbeach was 10 amas high, as a smake misfasa Mizbeach l'mayla. It means the way he explains there is that what it says in Posik, it was 5, it means 5 higher than the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach was 10, and this is higher than the Mizbeach. Was Fasa Mizbeach, it was 5. It was 15, whatever it is. The Mele is moving as Eich when the gate, Heich B'shara Chotzer Kemazogens. If so the same thing we could say concerning the height of the Shar, of the gate, where you had the Mosach. As al derech hapshat is a chol haperushim genor chomesh amas. So it's so steer from the Gemara. You could say that according to all opinions, it was 5 amas. Afilu leidem pirish for the kemis hamizbeich is yud amas. Even if you hold the mizbeich was 10 amas high, the kloyim were 5, and the mosach was 5. So b'meile from the second to this last shayla that we had, according to the Gemara is mashman, that if you hold that the mizbeich was 10 amas high, you have to hold that when it says 5 amas by the mosach means 5 amas on top of the kloyim. So why doesn't Rashi learn like that? So the Rebbe said, no, that's not right. Because according to Rashi, the kloyim were 5, and there was no problem. So Yitaka brings the shita that it was 10 amas high the mizbeach, but it has nothing to do with the kloyim, and the kloyim were 5. So that made it good fit you. You don't have to learn that lu'umas hamizbeach, lu'umas kalei achotze means higher than the kalei achotze. You can learn 5, and the kalei achotze were, and the mosach was also 5, the same size. So you could learn it means kemidas. That it doesn't mean kasha was you should have to learn lu'umas means higher. You can learn kemidas. It's weiter beschwer, but the kasha, the other shaila remains. True that according to Pshat, there's nothing forces us to say as das Rabbi Yossi, they gave him chotzer shara chotzer, give him every chomesh amas. There's no reason to say, even according to Rabbi Yossi, that the Mizbeach was 10 amas high, that to say that the shar where you had the curtain was more than 5. No problem. So that's like another problem why Rashi doesn't learn that it was higher than the kloyim. But look at what we said in the beginning, the kasha. Look at the loshon of the pasuk, where the pasuk says it was 5 amas high. Now, if it means 5, similar, equal to the height of the chotzer, why does it have to tell? It says 5. The kalei chotzer were 5, so why you have to repeat it? You should say he says 5, and that's enough. Why does he have to add that this was the same size as the kalei chotzer? But Megadaf, so according to that, because of that kasha, but Megadaf Taichin, so we should have said the Shara Chotzer given Chomesh Amas Hecher for the Kalei Chotzer now. Would have made more sense to say that it was 5 amas higher. So the pasuk would say that the Mosach and the Chotz and the Shara Chotzer was 5 amas higher than the Kalei Chotzer, which would be 10. So the kloyim around were all 5 amas high, and this Mosach, which is this curtain, was 10 amas. That would be more sensible. So why does Rashi learn like that? So the Rebbe says the beer and them the explanation is like this. The first thing the Rebbe is going to answer, and that's going to be the Raifir, the first kasha. If Rashi is just trying to explain what the word lu'umas means, why did he also quote from the pasuk the word kalei achotzer? He's only teaching lu'umas means kibidas. So the Rebbe says like this. No, when Rashi brings the word lu'umas kalei achotzer, he brings these words by these 3 words are extra. Even if we would say that when it says the Mosach was 5 amas higher than the Chotzer, there's no else to prove. These 3 words are not understood. Why? The Torah wants to tell us that it's the Mosach by the Shar was 5 amas higher than the kloim. I feel if it wants to say that. Is that the way the Torah would say it? That it should be 5 amas higher than the size of the kloim. 5 amas higher. It could have said very short and very clear. the height of the Mosoch should be 10 amas. If it would mean 10 amas. So why does the Pasuk B'chal have to mention it? See, according to other Pshat, is B'chal HaShayla, why does the Torah mention it? If you learn like Rashi, that it's the measurement, it's exactly 5, like the Kala Chotzer, so we already asked before, why mention it B'chal? But let's say we'd say it means higher, so it does have to mention it. But why would the Torah tell us that it was 10 amas by saying it was 5 amas higher than the Kloim? Say 10 amas in fact. That's short and sweet, short and clear. The Rebbe sagt Rashi, that's what Rashi says. At the Posik kum to sagen a tam. For was the heich from Moshe Shalach Chotzer gedar sein chomesh amas. The Torah is the only way we can explain why the Torah says this is that the Torah taka means 5 amas, not 5 amas above the Kloim. And the Torah is telling us a reason why the Eibishter wanted it should be that way. Why did the Eibishter want it should be 5 amas high? The Torah says, why? So why should we nicht hecher? With the Mosach Pesach Eil, not higher, like by the Eil Meid, the thing was the Mosach, the Pereichas was higher. Why does the Torah here want it to be only 5? So the answer is the Pasuk tells us, while der Mosach had gemuz sein kebidas kalechotzer. The Mosach had to be, this curtain had to be same size as the Kloim. The Pasuk is matic. The Pasuk stresses. The Mosach is in sein Teichen, the contents of the Mosach, sein Zweck. What is the purpose? Doselbe und atel from the Kloim. It has the same purpose as the Kloim, and it's part of the Kloim. Just like since you had to have an entrance to go in, you can't just have all the Kloim, it'll block out, you can't get in. So you had to have but the purpose of it is, it became a Mosach, it became a curtain. But the purpose is, it is part of the Kloim. Und der Rebbe darf sein Heich, sein Punkt für the Zeir Heich. So if it's part of the Kloim, it has to just blend into the Kloim. It was made from different material, true, this Mosach. But still, it has the same function as the Kloim, and therefore it had to be the same size. Now that fits only if you learn that it was 5, and Lumas means Kemidas. But the Pasuk is telling you, I want it to be Kemidas. Not just by telling us it's like the measurement of the Kloim it's not just telling you how high. Because if that would be the reason, he'd tell you how high, tell me it's 10. Why do you have to say 5 higher than there? He's telling you what is the purpose of it, what is the function of it. And that's why the Pasuk says this. And Mamela, that's Machriach to say that it's not higher than the Kloim. If you'll say it's higher than the Kloim, then these words don't make sense. Higher than 5, higher than the Kloim, say it's 10. The only way we can understand it if you learn it's not higher. Fakert, Lumas means Kemidas. Now we understand what the Torah says. The Torah says the function of the Mosach is the same function as the Kloim. In other words, I'm going to touch these other words. The Rebbe didn't say these words that I'm going to say now, but in other words, it's negated to the Hemshech. That's why I'm saying it. What's the purpose of the Kloim? To block out. It's to block out the people from going. When do you make a fence around something? No one should be able to get in, to especially lock this in. The Mosach is also made to lock it in. It was a curtain taki because you have to be able to get in. But we want to block out that the chotzer is covered from all sides. So in the front, there is a Mosach that's part of similar to the Kloim. It's also to block out. The male, it has to be blended in with the Kloim, so it has to be the same. Der Mitzvah bei der Chaga verrentet die Kasha al derech halacha was wird gebracht in Rabbi Tzina Bala Tesis. This is going to answer a kasha that the Bala Tesis on Chumash ask in halacha. They ask al derech halacha, but Rashi, the way Rashi learns, this will answer. Their question is like this: if it was only 5 amas high, in Cain, so the opening of the gate was not as high as it was in the Heichal in the Beis Hamikdash, because only 5 amas in the Beis Hamikdash it was much higher. So yes, Akasha, the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash are very similar, but we see it doesn't fit to that measurement. And the Rebbe Zayin Dort Mafarish, and that's what they explained. The Balatesis at the Kloim from Tzad Mizrach, that the Kloim on the front of the Chotzer, on the Mizrach side, the eastern side, B'meile the Pesach HaChotzer, and B'meile also the entrance from Gehad Yeheich from Chof Hama. So they learn differently. The Take around the Kloim around the Chotzer from 3 sides, from both sides and from the back were 5 amas, but in the front it was 20 amas, and so was the entrance, and the Mosach was also 20 amas. That's what they learned. But otherwise, they ask if it was only 5, it doesn't fit to the way it was in the Heichal. The Rashi learned according to Rashi, the way he says in Pshat, the way we explained, To begin with, no kasha. While the posik gufa ba'avorintis, the posik is telling us why it had to be like this and not like the heichol. By adding the word lumas kali, which means that it has to have the same measurement because it's telling you that it's part of the same function. The mosach shar achotzer given a tail from the kali achotzer. This mosach, this curtain, was part of the kali achotzer, of the mechitza around the chotzer. Even though, like I said, it was a different material, but still, it was part of that function. Nicht onweisen from welcher Seite, and it doesn't say from which side. Das heißt, als in ganzen Chotzer sind die gewähnt dieselbe Heich von der Kloim. The whole Chotzer, the Kloim was the same, and in order to say that the whole Chotzer has to have the function of the Kloim, so every area of around the Chotzer has to be the same size. So therefore, when it comes to the Pesach, it has to be the same size, and that's told to us by the Posik adding the words Lumas Kalei Chotzer. So this shad, this gate, Taka is different than the gate of the Heichel, than the Pesach HaHeichel. The Kasha was, why is it different than Pesach HaHeichel? The answer is because that's a different function. The Pesach HaHeichel is a regular opening, a regular Pesach. And here, the Pesach is telling you, for whatever reason, that the Mosach, by the Shar, is part of the Kloyim. So therefore, it has to be exactly like the Kloyim, not like it was in the Heichel. The Heichel had a different function, whatever it was. The Chidush binyan al, the Rebbe continues. This Chidush that we said, as the Moshe Shara Chotzer is beteichne atel from the Kloyim. In the teich, the contents, what it really represents, that its function is exactly like the Kloyim. That noch klarer werden later hezber in a machlekes or a sheni when they get to chiyuv mezuzah. Will be even clearer when we explain an argument of the rishenim when they get the obligation of the mezuzah. Happens very interesting. Eine von den Tanoim was eine Mechayev Abayis in Kriyas mezuzah. One of the conditions that obligates a house to have a mezuzah. Rechem the Rambam says the yiyuleit losses has to have doors. The Rabbi holds. When Azay the day of Noch Rishonim and many other Rishonim hold as Eicha Pesach on Adelas is mechuyev mezuzah. An opening without a door is mechuyev mezuzah. That's how we pass. Like even if it has no door, mechuyev mezuzah. Now, but we have to understand what's the svara behind their machlekes. Why would the Rambam say like that? Now, many times, even if we know that there are rayas from a Gemara, he holds his raya, holds this raya, or there are sometimes the way we learn pshat in the pasuk, but there always has to come along with a svara. Why would he learn pshat like this? There must be logic behind it. So, what's the logic behind the Rambam svara that it needs a door, and according to the Leib and other Rishonim, that without a door it's also mechuyev. Kema mazbazayin zeh machlekes. You could explain the machlekes like this: as das histoli and bir hagedet from delas. It depends on what is the concept or the function of a door. In halacha, what's the function of a door? One way you could say is delis is atel from shar. There is a gate, and the gate has a door. The door is part of the gate. What's the purpose of the gate? The gate is to allow you to go in and out. It's an opening, and the door is part of the opening. Or you could say, there is a gate, and the gate is an opening there for you to go in, and the door is an inya for itself. It's the opposite. It's not an opening, it's to lock. On them delos will give an ashtendik off in the cholol. If not for the door, it'll always be open. When the delos is says of the cholol, and the door closes, stuffs up, closes up the. So one way is it's a delach. The one shot, first shot is that the door is part of the opening. It lets you in and out. There should be an opening, it's part of the opening. And the other one is that it's part of the close, it's not part of the opening. It's a separate union. It's to be able to close the door. The difference between these two opinions will be concerning the mitzvah of mezuzah. If we say the door is part of the gate, which is the opening, this is also part of the opening, is mistaber, it makes sense that the chiyuv from mezuzah was is verbunden mit mokem haknisa vayetzia. So obviously, the chiyuv of mezuzah, which is connected, as we always know, what's the mezuzah? That when you go into the house, the entrance on the right side, you make it by the entrance, and also the going out from bayis is faran norban the pesach is vifanei roga basholem. We know that the union of mezuzah comes for the entrance of this place. Now, if a door is part of the entrance, that means that the entrance is not complete unless it has a door. If there's an entrance, and that door is also part of the entrance. When it has a door, then it's the complete entrance. Opening the door allows you to go in. So the door is part of the opening. So when are you chai b'mezuzah? Only when you have a door. Because you're chai b'mezuzah when the opening is complete. And the door is part of the opening. If we'll say, maybe the concept of the door is to close it. What makes no sense to say that the obligation of mezuzah by the opening and by the gate of the house, which is the the place where you go in and out. So be connected to the door. Why do you have to have a door? But Zainzach is nicht to the los the concept, according to the second way, the concept of a door is to block out the going in and out. So why would that be connected to mezuzah? Mezuzah is not for blocking out. Mezuzah is for a place that you go in and out, and not to stop. And the door, according to the first way, that's part of the door. It helps you go in and out. And the second way is not. So according to the first way, we understand why we need the door. That's the shit of the Rambam. And the Rabbi, the other Rishonim, they were held according to the second way. Und do Zetman, the Shitas Rasha, Pirush al-Teira, Pepshuta Shmikra in Deminyan. Now here we have an argument for Rambam and the Rabbi and Halacha. Now we could see, if we look back at what the Rebbe said before, we could see what Rasha will hold in Derech HaPshat, in Pshuta Shmikra, in this Inyan. Rasha learns, der Mosach Shara Chotzer and Gemuz Zayin Kimidas Kalei Chotzer. Rasha says, as we said before, that the height of this curtain, which means the height of the shar, was the same height as the kloyim. Ukenal, and as we said before, Babam Husa is a ratil from the kloyim. That we said Be'em is this this mosach, this curtain, which is the part of the shar, is part of the kloyim. That's what they're saying. So Seisas, Keshem with the kloyim is in Yonam Stime, as we said before, that's why I explained it before that way. Just like the kloyim is the purpose is to block out, to close up. So to this curtain, in Yonam Nita tail for the Pesach Sharachotze, the curtain is like the kloyim. So it's not for the purpose of having the opening, nor stime. The purpose is to close. Ukishmei Mosach in the Pasuk Mosach. What does Mosach mean? Rasha says Mosach means to protect, to block out. You shouldn't see it. So that's what Rasha says when the Pesach, the Mosach of the Pesach of the Shar. Therefore, is moving when they get gathered from Delos. So from here, since this was like a door, this is a curtain. From here, we understand how Rasha looks at the door. But the Mosach Sharachot is Mamakim Adelos. This was in place of the door. That was the Mosach. Like the son of the Rambam and the Rambam explains. So it comes out as like Shitas Rasha is Delos Yones Gire Unit Psiche. So according to Rasha, here we see a door, not mamash a door, but it's a curtain which is like a door. And the Pasuk tells us, according to Pshat, that this is part of the kloyim, which means it's part of the closing of the area, not opening, not how to get in, not opening. The Meilet, that shows that this is a door. So this fits to not the Shita of the Rambam, but the Shita of the Rabbi, the others, that a door is for closing. So why would the mezuzah be chayiv only if it has a door? Mezuzah is chayiv for the knisa, for a place which is open. And a place that's open like that you can go in and out, that's chayiv mezuzah. But not with it, not nothing to do with it. And das is still now we're saying Rashi in Pshuto Shel Mikro will fit. Now this fits the way Rashi learns on the Gemara. Where Rashi Taka holds. As Eicha Pesa, believe that is the Rashi says a opening without the door is also chayiv mezuzah. And we even gerät in Asboras Hashita as Adelas is nicht contained from the Pesach, which fits to what we said before, that why do you, the one that holds that it doesn't need a door, why is it? Because the door is not part of the opening, it's part of the closing, fits to what we said Pshat in this Rashi here, fits to the way Pshuta Shemikra would be the din b'negei mezuzah, and Lepel Mamash, Rashi in Shas also learns like that without the door it's also chayiv, and the Svara is because the door's inyan is not the opening, the door's inyan is the closing. The Shaila now, they can get it from Adelas in Chilek Alocha Shabbatera. This Shaila we asked before. What is the concept of a door? What is the function of a door? In the Chilek of Alocha, this would also, this is connected, that we find the same idea in the way the inyan of a door is in Chassidus. What's Delos? Delos b'pnimis yanyonim is Firas HaMalchus. It brings from from Kelis Yankiv that a Delos represents Malchus. While Firas HaMalchus is the Mamutza zwischen Elam Atzilus and Elam Mishamatam Atzilus. Malchus is the last sphere of Atzilus. So that's the in-between Atzilus and Lord and Atzilus. just like a door. A door is in between one side and the other side. So you have Atzilus and we have Bria, and the door which is in between is Malchus. And in every Elam is a Bria, see, they're all, every Elam has its spheres, and Malchus is the in between the higher Elam and the lower Elam, and it's like a door. And the spheres of Malchus, and that's and there are two Yonim in Malchus. Number one, Malchus is Mailam of the spheres of Hechef. Malchus blocks out, conceals the spheres which are higher. The Eir Sof, the Eir Leki, that's in the higher spheres, is blocked out by Malchus. But Mitzadem Hella for Malchus, that's Yom Yam. You find sometimes Malchus is called Yam because Yam blocks out. The Gemara says, whatever you have in Yabosh, in dry land, you have in the Yam. All the things we have on dry land in the Yam. The difference is on dry land we see it all, and the Yam we don't tell them, we don't see it. So Yam is called Malchus is called Yam because it's Helam. It's one function of Malchus. Durch dem Helam is now that there is a Helam, there's a second thing. Malchus troktar open is Megala dem Eif and Atzilus and Nidirik Eilmet. It blocks out the air, and that's why it's able to take some of the air and bring it to the lower worlds. Because it also brings a Gilui, it's called the Oretz, like we said. Oretz, everything that's on top of the earth, we see. So Malchus is also called Oretz. It's called Yam called Oretz. So it has two functions. One is to block out, right away see the connection to what we said before. It blocks out on one hand, and it also opens. It's part of what brings. Und da stellt sich the Shaila. So here we have a Shaila in Kabbalah. What's the Rike from Sfiras HaMalchus? What's the main part of Malchus? The Rinyan HaHela, but the Rinyan HaGilu. Is it the fact that it's Mailam and the elements or Megalav? Is in und durch here? It's the Helam that it does, or the Gilui that comes through it. The answer, like Pirish Rashi, according to Rashi, we have the answer. L'umas kale achotze, Rashi says, when the Pasuk says that the Mosoch is L'umas, the Pasuk says L'umas kale achotze, Rashi says means Kemidas kale achotze, like the measurements. And that's how Rashi learns Derech HaPshat. That means like this, Mitzadem limud v'neilam HaPshat. The way we're learning it from Pshat Shutish Mikra. And we know that 4 drochim in learning Torah, Pshat, Remesh, Drush, Seid, is connected to 4 elements. Pshat is Elam Asiyah, Seid, secrets of Torah, is Elam Atzilus, and Remes and Drush is Shaila, which one is Bria and which one is Yitzira. 2 ways we can learn. But one thing is clear, the Derech HaPshat is connected Elam Asiyah. So when we're learning Pshat, and we're going to use the Kabbalistic inyonim connected to Pshat, so we're looking at the way things are mitzad Elam Asiyah, because al Kabbalah Pshat is Elam Asiyah. So according to Pshat, which is Elam Asiyah, is there Mosoch v'deles v'sfiras HaMalchus v'nyon v'dikloyim Helam Estima. Looking at from the way it's Nasiyah, what's the function of Malchus, which is the deles, which is the Mosoch, is the same as the Kloyim. What's the Kloyim? Kloyim we said before is to block out, and the Mosoch is supposed to be like the Kloyim, to block out. So from looking from Derech, from Elam Asiyah, from Derech HaPshat Elam Asiyah, the Inyan of Malchus is that the blocks out. In Elam Asiyah, we have a great Helam of a Lakus. In the Elam is Bria v'Yitziras, in the higher worlds, Hagam is Eichen Zeipel der Helam of Sfiras HaMalchus, even though that Sfiras HaMalchus of Atzilus also blocks out the Eir Legabe going down lower to Bria and Yitzira. But the Rebbe is not made the Eir Leki as a Begilav in Atzilus, Elam Achdas. That's why the Eir Leki is not shining in Bria and Yitzira with the same light as in Atzilus. Atzilus is called Elam Achdas. Achdas Alakuza. Unity of Hashem is great there. Gilead itself is great there. In Bria Yitzira not, because there is a Helam of Malchus. From deswegen, Wert is a Nimshach Aninja from Gilead Alakus. Nevertheless, we know that in Atzilus there is a level of Gilead Alakus. I mean, in Bria level, Gilead Alakus, even in Yitzira. When the father is Bria and Elavas is Rubei Tev, it says Atzilus is Kulei Tev. In Bria, it's Rubei Tev, mostly good. And good, what does good mean? Good means Gilead Alakus. Yitzira is Akapone Machzal Machzal. Yitzira is half and half. That shows that as much as there is a Helam in Malchus, Malchus causes the Helam, it's not really fully Helam. It brings Gilead Alakus. So mitzad those worlds, what is Malchus, which is the door? Malchus is the Gilead, is the Psicha, the entrance. But in Elam Asiyah is Helam Lagamre. In this world, Elam Asiyah is a real Helam. It's Elam HaKlippus V'Sitracha. It's a real Elam which is not it's Rubei Ratz. It's mostly Ratz. Elam HaKlippus V'Sitracha. And it's a Lashon of Tanya. And then he says, Kol Ma'is Elam Haza Kosher V'Royim. In Tanya says all the actions, the things in Elam Haza are hard and bad. Arashoyim gave him, the Shoyim are here. So in Elam Asiyah, we see the Helam. The Rebbe herzich in Elam Asiyah, Elam Apshat, the Ikke, the Pulas HaHelam of Malchus. In Elam Asiyah, what do we see? Mainly the Helam. So that's what he says. Beside higher worlds, which is not Pshat, the union of Delis, which is Malchus, could be the Gilui part of it. But Rashi and Pshat learns that the Delis is the blockade, the blocking, and that's what Malchus is, because in Derech Pshat, which is connected Elam Asiyah, in Apipnimi Senyonim, their taka the Iker of Malchus is the Helam. Malchus is Mailam, and here it's a full Helam. How much we see like a puzzle, everything fits. The Kachal Sakavoni is the Chobek to Mavatal Zainem Helam, as Alzan Gilei Lukus Lamata. Okay, true, Lamata is a Helam. But the purpose of the Eivishter, what Eivishter wants is to be Mavatal this Helam. There should be, even down here, should become Gilei Lukus. The Rebbe steht nicht in Teire befeidish kemidas kali achotzer. Rebbe is a dike, another dike. If the word lumas kali achotzer means, like Rashi says, kemidas kali achotzer, like the measurement, why doesn't it say clearly? Why did it say lumas? And we have to worry what it means and figure out. And after trouble, we figure out it means kemidas. Why did it say kemidas? No, lumas kali achotzer, it says lumas. So he says like this, was lumas meint nicht afragleich, was is the zelbe mamish. The word lumas, taka means kemidas, but not exactly the same. It's similar. Aldera, the Loshim in the Gate of Kedusha and Klip, like it says a posik. In the Gate of Kedusha and Klip, it says Zeh Le'uma Zeh. This is, does it mean that Klip is exactly as strong as Kedusha? It has a similarity. So Le'umas means similar, the same measurement, but not exactly. Because hey, so here in our case, what it means is, der Mosach Shara Chotzer is not the Zelba Mamish for the Kloyim. We said that the Mosach, it should be like the Kloyim because it has the same function. But really, by using the word leumas, not kemidas, means it's not exactly. The kloyim is a complete blockade. That's it. There's no opening there. And that's how it stays. But we have a kayach. Nor Teire git kayach tzibur machen der mosach. So Teire gives us a kayach to change it as olverna inyan from psicha v'gilui. It should be able to become a psicha v'gilui because in Ruchni is again. The Mosach represents the Delos, the Helam, but the Torah wants to tell you that this Helam is not a real Helam. Because we're talking about Derech Hapshat, in Maise, in Elam Asiyah, there's a Helam, and that's what the Delos is. So Torah wants to hint to us that it's not the same Helam. It's a Helam with a potential, or the Eibishter wants, there should be a Gilui. These are Sved, the Psiche, with the Pischa Shulam, and to open up Take, not just open up a little bit, open up like the Pesach of the Ulam, in the Beis Hamikdash was Lehoye Beit Losses. The Ulam had no doors. It had a Pesach, had an opening, but no doors. And in Ruchnis, what does that mean? There is a Helam, there is a Mosach, but really this David wants we should use it for an opening. And if we use it, it could bring you to the biggest opening. As a Svet, der Gilu ständig betachlis on Kelonis. That what becomes is, it's always open, and there's no Helam. And it's the highest Gilu that we could get. Like it says when Mashiach will come, the Nigla Kved Avaya. The covenant of Avaya will be revealed. All flesh will see. The spoke, and that's what the Mosach represents. Both what it is really is a Helam now, but it's a Helam that is the Aveda of Gilui, and we will bring it, and Mashiach will come. Then the Rebbe says here, here again we see the Hafloi Pirush Rasha Batera, the specialty, the wondrous thing of Rasha, Pirush of Rasha and Chumash. From a simple, very short piece of Rasha. Rasha says, Lumas means, Lumas Kali Achotzer, Kemidas Kali Achotzer. Very simple. Rasha is just translating the word, and it's very simple. But Kemen Arisnam, and from that we see how we could take out Nit Norvi in Oder Pirush, is Bela the Klau Vashrasha, Len Gitaruis, Vanile Bosya, Lupshuta Shmikro. Not only that we see again and again here also, that Rasha gave a klal that his Pirush is based on Pshat. And the Rebbe explained the whole Sikha how Rasha is based on Pshat. Aida Gemara is mashma different, but Pshat is different. So this again strengthens that klal, that Rasha is based purely on Pshat. Together with that, Eilis also we could take out from here, you could see the indem Pirush Rasha in front of Yonim of Loyim Meich V'Shaychas Piski Alocha. There are wondrous things. And this is the Loshen the Rebbe brings the bottom for the Shalom, that we have in Yonim of Loyim in Halacha. We are there, just like we see in this commentary on the Torah. Is behesem Shosita Rasha v'Pirush al Hashaza. This fits like Rasha learns on the Gemara. When they have the Asomim, we also see the connection, how they fit. Zwischen den Yonim is Zayin al Derech Hapshat ve'Halocha, with the Vednis Bayin and Kabbalah and Chassidus. The Yonim the way are Pshat and Halocha, and it also fits the way the Yonim are in Chassidus. So this shows this is a simple Rasha, a small Rasha, and it teaches you the greatness of Rashi, what you can do with Rashi. And we could add to it, this shows us the greatness of the Rebbe. How the Rebbe could take 3 words of Rashi, really it's 1 word. The other 2 is the same lashon of the posik. 1 word, kimidas, and build up such a thing to bring out from Rashi, side the pshat of it, the specialty of the pshat, inside the halacha part of it, and the chassidus part of it. This is something that we only see by the Rebbe.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, alle gesund, gut Nacht.